There was kid in my wife's class that squeezed the classroom hamster to death. Teachers, what's the darkest thing you've seen from a student? Hope you brought some popcorn with you, because this story time is going to get really good. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Andrew, the best Reddit storyteller. Since you're already here, can hit the like button for the algorithm? Really helps out. If you do, I'll buy you access to your favorite TikTokers OnlyFans. Anyways, let's get into the stories. In elementary school we had a kid with a severe peanut allergy, and a teacher caught some kids rubbing peanut butter on the opening of his water bottle. We also had a kid who could describe in detail about how to prepare heroin. I had a kid who really wanted his parents to come to his graduation ceremony, but they were both sex offenders and couldn't be on campus. He just wanted someone there to support him. A list simply entitled "The List" with a few students' names and my co-teacher's name on it. Was a student with some serious behavioral disabilities on it who admitted it was a kill list. A former student of mine was always the quiet one in class. Taught them for 4 years, and I spent a large amount of time trying to get them to open up and contribute to class, as their written work was exceptional. 7 years after graduation they emailed to apologize for being quiet and that they didn't want me to think they were stuck up. They were being frequently raped by a family member the whole time and were too afraid to speak out. Absolutely broke me. Kid seemed down and I asked him to please tell me what was wrong. Not today, but when you're ready. I was his last class of the day and he promised he would. End of the year comes and he told me his brother killed himself. He said he thought about the same many times, but always remembered that he had made me a promise. I made him promise to call me if he ever thought he might again, and he promised me again. He's doing amazingly well and is about to graduate from college. A teacher student saw one of my former co-teachers at some point with his wife and thought she was hot, and my co-teacher took advantage of this to get the student to secretly record his sister taking showers and crap. He offered videos of his wife performing sexual acts on with him to the student in exchange. He finally got caught when the student blackmailed the teacher into trying to get the wife to duck him, and when he proposed it to his wife, she called the cops. I've got two. I had a student casually tell me about how he pulled the eyes out of his rabbit's head. He explained how there was blood everywhere. This was my first day working as a supply teacher at that school and my first conversation with the student. I later brought it up to support staff and they were shocked he mentioned it to me. Apparently he killed his rabbit because his mom loved it more than she loved him. The boy was now in foster care as his mother was a drug addict. He shared a lot of really dark stuff with me that day. Another one, more sad than dark, was at a different school. Students had to write their address for an assignment, but this 4th grade girl didn't know hers. Another student asked me, "Do you know where the so-and-so motel is? She lives there." Really broke my heart, as this girl was so young and innocent and didn't really understand how unfortunate her living situation was, as she proudly googled the motel and found her address. Really low-income part of town. I had a 3rd grader tell me in excruciating detail about every time that he's been removed from a home, starting with how he was taken from his mother at 2 because they found drugs in his crib. In his crib. Imagine the toughest, baddest little dude you can and multiply the attitude by 100. He wrote me a note at the end of the year saying that I was a great teacher because he knew I loved him, even when he was bad. It has been and will always be the best note I ever get from a student. In that same class, I had a little boy try to cut his wrists with scissors, saying that he didn't want to be here anymore. Cops came to interview him and said they were just kid scissors, so it wasn't a big deal. Thankfully, Mom took it seriously and got him the help he needed. I taught welding and metal sculpture at the high school level for a year. One morning, one of my students, a quiet, awkward, but really nice young man, came into class and asked me for a band-aid. I asked him what for and he replied that it was for a burn. Class hadn't started yet for the day. He showed me and it was a fresh 2nd-degree burn that was already blistering. It was in the shape of an A. Some kids, if I'm going to be honest, they were bottom performers and troublemakers from a different class of mine, had swiped a small metal letter A from one of my supply bins, heated it with a lighter, and then branded this kit on the morning school bus. He had let the kids do it because he really wanted to fit in. He didn't have many friends, and these kids had seemed cool because they were always acting out. As a mandatory reporter, I reported it. The police got involved. Other than that, I have no idea what else happened. I am an English teacher, and I am the sponsor of the school's comic book and anime club. This year, I managed to take my club to a convention, and many of them had several firsts, such as meeting celebrities, LARPing, participating in panels, speaking to professional artists, and just being with a larger fandom community. Upon our return, one of my members, a 16-year-old girl, asked to speak to me privately. She proceeded to tell me that she had been molested by her father and uncle ever since she was 12. On her 16th birthday, she finally had enough of the abuse, and she contacted the police and told them everything. Before the investigation could begin, her uncle committed suicide out of shame. Her father was about to do the same, but she was able to convince him not to do it. He is now facing trial for his crimes. She then thanked me and said that the 2 days we spent at the convention were the happiest days of her life, and it allowed her to feel like a child for the first time in 4 years. It was the proudest moment of my career. Edit. I want to express a heartfelt thank you for the overwhelmingly positive response to this post. Your kind words will serve to keep me fueled during this time of social distancing. I really miss my students, and I hope I can see them once again before the school year ends. As for the subject of my post, please know that her counselors and I are closely monitoring her as the wheels of justice slowly turn. As long as she's my student, I'll do everything in my power to keep her safe. And maintaining the supportive environment of the comic book and anime club for her to socialize and thrive within and enjoy her high school experience is the best way I can help her now. I teach teens with emotional behavioral disorders as their primary disability and learning as a secondary. Anyways, seen lots of crap, but I'll narrow down to these two. First, one student D was hard to connect with. He was so disconnected from his peers even. He was on the smaller side and lacked confidence. D was the head-down disengaged type that usually took a little longer to build a trusting relationship with. I just assumed this was his coping mechanism at school. One day he was gone, and another student announced that it was for molesting his little sisters. It turned out there was a big bust in our area within his trailer park where children were just being passed around between convicted sex offenders and used to create porn. The reason truth unfolded was because his little sister's teacher noticed that she had bled through her clothing in her first grade class. His little sister admitted that he had been abusing her for longer than she can remember. The most upsetting detail I remember is that his mother was allowing it to happen in exchange for childcare and money. He ended up in a juvenile detention center before his court date. Because he had an Irish punce, I was still responsible for providing instruction to him. What that meant was I would send a packet of math worksheets to his tutor at the center. Every couple weeks they would get sent back to me for grading. The first time I received his work there was doodles and symbols. The next time, he started to write phrases. By the end of the semester, he wrote me pleas to help him all over his pages. Later on I found out he was being victimized simultaneously by an older man he met on the bus, is now married and has a child of his own. Second, I had a brother and sister, K+M, in class together who had a unique bond. They had not spent most of their years growing up together as they were in and out of foster cares or group homes. At this point in time, they were living with an aunt, but it mostly seemed like they were house hopping between family members. Their attendance was poor, and it was hard to keep track of their current residence. It wasn't very unusual in this district because there's a lot of mobility, especially around this population. Halfway through the year we got a new female student, J. Her mother had gone to prison, so she moved to the area to live with family members. J made a positive first impression with peers despite being quiet and more reserved. She had anxiety and depression, so when she stopped attending after the first week no one seemed alarmed. It was such a big life change, so most teachers presumed she bailed on school. It was at this time K+M were thriving at school. They were seeming more positive and taking better care of themselves. Come to find out, they invited J over one weekend and decided to beat and drug her in an apartment where they had been staying unsupervised. They kept her high in a closet and prostituted her for income. but then explained why they were wearing new clothes and fresh haircuts. Thanks for watching. What did you think of the story time? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more story times.